All right, so this is lesson 6-7. We're actually going to cover it in just one video because pretty much it's the same steps no matter what type of radical equation that you have. The first step is always to isolate that radical. And then we'll raise the power to get rid of the radical. So we'll raise the power on both sides because you got to keep it balanced. And then we'll solve or simplify whatever's left. So remember, isolate first. That's the most important thing. So here's our steps over off to the side. So to isolate, we would subtract 4. So a lot of this is really just solving or a lot of just your basic algebra skills. The next one, raise the power to get rid of. Well, this is just a square root, so we're going to square both sides. So we have x minus 1 equals, and this 1 squared is 1. And then simplify or solve. So we're going to add 1. So x equals 2. Now we do want to make sure to check our answer, so let's plug 2 in, and most of the time the checking can just be done in your head. 2 minus 1 is 1, the square root of 1 is 1, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So yep, we're good. So let's look at the next one. Since this is already isolated, we can just go ahead and get rid of the cube root by cubing both sides. So that gets rid of just the cube root. It doesn't do anything to what's underneath here. So we're just left with 3x minus 4. And then we want to take 2 and cube it, which you can use your chart, your little blue half sheet if you need to, or just type that into your calculator. Or in this case, probably could do that in your head. Next step is to solve. So we're going to add 4. It's just a 2-step equation. And then we're going to divide by 3. Now, not always is it going to give you a pretty number, so just keep that in mind. Some of these will or might have fractions. And then we want to check. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. The cube root of 8 is 2. So yep, it works. All right. Let's try number 3. Have you do that one on your own. Remember on this one, get rid of the 6 with division first. So divide both sides by 6 first, then undo the radical, and then solve. So when you're ready, check your answer. All right, so dividing by 6, we should get the square root of x plus 10 equals 7. Undo the square root by squaring both sides, and then subtract 10 to get your answer of 39. So for this next one, similar thing, we undo this multiplication right here of 5 by dividing, and then we undo the cube root by cubing both sides. Make sure to simplify this before you go to cube. So next step is to just bring down that 4x plus 3. Remember, cubing the cube root just gets rid of that cube root. It doesn't do anything to the underneath stuff. 3 cubed is 27. And then solve that 2-step equation. Subtract 3 and then divide by 4. So we wind up on this one with a fraction because 24 does not divide evenly by 4. So you can either keep it as a simplified fraction if you want to put, sorry, that is, I'm losing it. It's 6. That one is a good one. Most of these first ones will be, but then keep an eye out for those fractions. Let's move on to ones that contain 2 radicals. So we're not going to isolate because they're on both sides. There's no way to. So we first just want to go ahead and then raise that power to whatever the radical is to get rid of it. So on this side it gets rid of it and it's just an 8x plus 6. Now on this side though, we're also squaring the 3, which means we have a 9 because the 3 squared, and then it just gets rid of the square root here and leaves us with x. Remember, it does not square underneath. It just gets rid of the radical. So then we're going to solve, and we get x equals 6. So try that next one. Remember, when you cube both sides, you have to cube the 2, and then when you cube the cube root, it just gets rid of this. Make sure to keep what's underneath that radical in parentheses, and then you'll have one additional step of distributing. Actually, let's go ahead and do that one together, and then I'll have you try number 3. So, like I said, cube both sides. So it just gets rid of the cube root there. 2 cubed, we want to actually do, and that gives us 8. And then we do the cube root of this, which just gets rid of that cube root. So here's that additional step of distributing before we solve. And then I was kind of bad and forgot to check my answer over here, but you definitely want to plug that in and check because sometimes when we do these squaring and the rooting, sometimes those answers may seem correct, like we did everything right, but it's always good to check. So we have 7x equals negative 2 divided by 7. So there's our fraction, negative 2/7 is our answer. Again, plug it back in and check, and that's what you could do on your calculator. So try number 3 on your own and check when you're ready. All right, so let's take this one step at a time. Undo the square root by squaring both sides. That means squaring the 3, and then it gets rid of the square root and keeps that 3x minus 2 in parentheses. So you should have distributed that 9, and now we can solve. I like to subtract the smaller variable, so that's what I did first, subtract the 7x. Next is just a two-step equation. So add 18, divide by 20, so x equals 1. Plug it back in and check. So 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9, square root of 9 is 3. Underneath here, 3 minus 2 is 1, square root of 1 is 1, 1 times 3 is 3. So 3 equals 3. Yep, it worked. All right, let's talk about what extraneous solutions are. It's when solving a radical equation, raising each side of the equation to an even power may introduce extraneous solutions. So to make sure that your solution is not extraneous, you substitute it back in, which you've kind of practiced before. We just need to make sure that it truly works, because sometimes, remember when we take that square root, maybe it's a negative number and it doesn't quite work out correctly. So we're going to square this side, square this side. So it's 2x plus 14. Now we need to FOIL here. Remember, you cannot distribute this. We're taking x plus 3 times x plus 3. So FOILing is going to get us x squared plus 6x plus 9. And you can write it over off to the side here if you need to use that space to FOIL. Okay, so we have to come up with that middle term after we combine. Okay, so there's our FOILing where I got my x squared plus 6x plus 9. We can't just distribute. That doesn't work. So what we want to do next is get everything to one side, and then we can see if we can factor or simplify after. All right, so subtracting 2x, subtracting 14, that leaves me with nothing over here, 0, and then I've got my simplified quadratic here. So then I'm going to attempt to factor it. Let's think of factors of 5 that add to get 4, 5, and 1. And we want to have the 5 being positive, the 1 being negative. So then we could simplify x equals negative 5 if we set each of these equal to 0 and x equals 1. And then we want to check. So before I'm completely done, let's check and plug it back in. So negative 5, that would be negative 10. Add 14, that's 4. The square root of 4 is 2. And is negative 5 plus 3 positive 2? No. So this one is a no-no. Does not work. Next one is 1. Plug it in. That's 2. 2 plus 14 is 16. That would be 4 over here if I plug it in. And then 1 plus 3 is 4. So yep, 4 and 4. So this is my only answer. This one is the extraneous solution, because when I plug it in, I get 2 over here. But when I plug it in and take negative 5 plus 3, I get negative 2. So that's where that does not work. So try that next one on your own. Check when you're ready. All right, so check your answers, squaring both sides, making sure you FOILed on the right, then getting everything to one side so that it equals 0, so then you can factor. Factors are positive 4 and negative 3 that add to get 1 but multiply to get negative 12. Solving would give you negative 4 and positive 3. Plugging them back in, they actually both work. So make sure that you do check them when you get to that final step. I know we're like, oh, we're done. Yes, but you do have to check them, because that's not always, like we saw in this one, those aren't always your examples. All right, let's talk about fractions. So this really is the cube root, which we undo the cube root by cubing. So you're still going to do that same thing of cubing this side and cubing this side. It just looks a little funky, but it is going to cancel that out, because 1/3 times 3 is 1, which ends up just getting us that x plus 5. And then 3 cubed over here, 27, and then finish solving. Subtract 5. So that one was a pretty quick one, 22. Also double check your answer. Now before you can start doing that, make sure there's nothing else with that. So like this 3 out here, remember we want to isolate, and this is like it's the square root, so we undo by squaring both sides. So if you want to just put the 1/2 as the square root, and if that helps, then go ahead and do that. So that equals 9, and then we subtract 6, because 3 squared is 9. Subtracting 6, x equals 3. check your answer once you've got it. So go ahead and try a couple of these examples 1 through 8 just for good practice, whichever ones you feel like you need. Make sure to isolate that variable first.